Okay, now my Quran says, what is the shape of the earth? He says spherical. How did you come to know? When someone traveled around the earth in the 16th century. How many years back? 400 years back. Quran says in Surah Naziyah chapter 17 verse number 30, Wal arda ba'da zalika dahaha, and thereafter we have made the earth egg-shaped. And there are various other verses in the Quran that proving the earth is spherical. Rather it speaks it is geospherical, shape of the egg of an ostrich. Dahaha. And we know the egg of an ostrich is not like a round ball, it is flattened from the pole. The exact shape of the earth. Who could have mentioned this? Fluke, don't argue. I'll ask him, the light of the moon, is it its own light or reflected light? He will say, it's not its own light, reflected light. When do you come to know? He'll tell yesterday. Yesterday in science means 50 years back, 100 years back, 200 years back. But the Quran says in Surah Furqan chapter 25 verse number 61 that Allah has placed the constellation in the skies and placed Siraj, sun, having a light of its own, the Shams, and Qamar, the moon, having Nur, a reflected light. The Quran says the light of the sun is its own light, described as Siraj, Wahaj, or Diya, meaning own light, lamp, torch. And the moonlight is described as Nur or Munir, a borrowed light or reflected light. So what you came to know yesterday in science, 100 years back, 200 years back, 300 years back, my Quran says the moonlight is reflected light. 1,400 years back, who would have said that? So he will give a pause, like, oh, maybe your prophet was a genius. Oh, don't argue. Continue. The sun. Does the sun, we know the planets revolve. Does the sun rotate? He said, yes. When you came to know? When I was in school, I read in 1982 that the sun revolves but does not rotate. Now science tells us that the sun rotates and takes about 25 days to complete one rotation. What I did not know in school, Allah says in the Quran in Surah Anbiya chapter 21 verse number 33. It's Allah who has created the night and the day. The sun and the moon. Each one traveling in the orbit with its own motion. Yasbahun describe the motion of a moving body. If on the floor, it will mean he's walking. If in the water, it will mean swimming. For a celestial body, it is rotating. What I did not know in school, now in your school it is mentioned because now the books have been revised. So what I did not know 50 years back, Allah says in the Quran, the sun is rotating. Who could have mentioned that? There'll be a big pause. Don't wait for the answer, continue. Quran is not a book of science, S-C-I-E-N-C-E. It's a book of science, S-I-G-N-S, ayats. There are more than 6,000 ayats, signs in the Quran, out of which more than 1,000 speak about science. After every, I just give you an example of 3 for you can hear my talk on Quran Modern Science. I gave it last year in the Perlis Convention. After every sign, who could have mentioned this? And I can go on and on. The universe is expanding in Surah Dariyat, chapter 50 and verse 47. It talks about physics, atom, zarra. The zarra is not the smallest thing, which we did not know until recently. In Surah Yunus, chapter 10, verse 61. It talks about biology, that from every water, every living creature is made from water. That is chapter number 21, verse number 30. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَفَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ? We have created every living thing from water. Will you not then believe? Today science tells us every animal is made from water. Surah Nur, chapter 24, verse 45. Every human being is made from water. Surah Furqan, chapter 25, verse 54. And it talks about zoology. Animals live in communities. Surah Anam, chapter 6, verse 38. It talks about in the honey, the healing for humankind. That the bees, they have a special methodology of communication. In Surah Nahl, chapter 16, verse number 68, 69. That in the belly of the bees, there is a drink of varying colors in which there is healing for humankind. That honey has healing powers. In Surah Nahl, chapter 16, verse 69. Who could have mentioned this? We did not know that honey had healing powers. Hadith says that. Talk about zoology. Talk about embryology, alaka. Talk about, go on and on. Who could have mentioned this? The answer which the atheists gave first. The creator. The producer. the maker, the inventor, this creator, this producer, this inventor, we Muslims call as Allah. So with hardcore science, we are proving logically the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are various ways. I will ask the atheist, you say there is no God? What is the definition of God? It's a logical point. When I say there is no God, I should know the definition of God. If I say, this is not a pen, I may not know what is this, but I should know the definition of pen. If I don't know the definition of pen, I cannot say this is not a pen. So if you are telling there is no God, can you define me what is God? So the moment atheist says there is no God, what is? Oh, God who can die. Even I don't believe in such a God. God who requires to eat food. Even I don't believe in such a God. So what is the definition of God? If you deny something, so in argument you should use logic, very important. Yes, you read the book of Dawkins, Burton is, he says that if someone says that the kettle is revolving around the earth, it is his job to prove. Yes, but for you to say kettle doesn't revolve, you should know the definition of kettle. I agree with you. It's not your job to prove that God exists, but it's your job to define what is God, if you say God doesn't exist. And then whatever definition he gives, we say, the right definition is Surah Ikhlas, chapter number 112, verse number 1 to 4. Qul huwallahu ahad, says Allah one and only. Allahu samad, Allah the absolute eternal. Lam yalid wa lam yulad, he begets not, nor is he begotten. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad, there's nothing like him. So this is the 4-line definition given about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the glorious Quran. If any individual agrees with this 4-line of definition, whoever you assume to be God, we Muslims have got no objection accepting that entity to be God. So this, and if you hear my talk on does God exist, it has various different ways of how to prove the existence of God. And wallahi, only with the Quran can you prove the existence of Allah. Hardcore existence. All the other philosophical debates that we have can be argued upon. So I tell the Muslims, use the Quran. There is no better way than the Quran to prove the existence of Allah. If you use any other book, you will fail. This is the prophetic method. Use the prophetic method. How when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Masjid al-Nabi, when the Nasaras, the Christian asked him, who is Allah? A prophet was shocked. Not that I didn't know. How can you define Allah? It will take us. The Wahi is revealed. Kul huwallahu ahad. Says Allah one and only. Allahu samad. Allah, the absolute eternal. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He begets not, nor is begotten. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. And there's nothing like it.